When daylight came, the fog was all the way down to the ground. You couldn't see, 50 feet. And the fog starts to lift like a blanket all at once. And as soon as the fog gets high enough for you to be able to see all the way through down the field, the whole world exploded. The classic German blitzkrieg. The tank's going to come up, destroy the front lines. Their infantry is behind them, and their artillery now is flying overhead. But the tanks go by, and the officers are yelling, "Let them go by, let the tanks go by, let the tanks go by. Keep your head down till the tanks go by." When the tanks got past us, and therefore their artillery now is back there, the German infantry starts across the field. And what a surprise they got. It was a slaughter that they did not expect. What it meant was that their first attack, complete failure.
You are about to embark upon the Great Crusade.
To meet this mounting aggression.
And make no mistake about it, good will prevail.
I grew up in New York City. I was born in what they called Hell's Kitchen there in Lower Manhattan, one of the roughest neighborhoods. And my parents were immigrants from Italy. And when I was about 3 years old, my older brother got hit in the head with a milk bottle in one of the street fights, and my mother just said to my father at that time, "I am not raising my family in this neighborhood." By good fortune, my grandmother, my mother's mother, had a house on Staten Island, and the rooms upstairs were empty, and so Mom said, but Pop, it meant for Pop that he had a 2-hour trip to his job. This was during the Depression where you had to hold on to whatever job you get. But my mother was a Sicilian woman that would not be denied. And so we moved to Staten Island. I grew up in what was called the rural part of New York City. There were 4 boys and 4 girls in my family. My father believed in equal gender deployment. 1941, it was a Sunday. I was a 16-year-old kid in high school, and I was pedaling my bicycle to a shop. And when I got in the shop, everything was quiet. Nobody was talking. Nobody was saying anything. And I looked around, and I finally said, "Hey!" They said, "Shut up! President Roosevelt's talking. He's saying something about the Japanese and Pearl Harbor." I jumped on my bike, and I rode back to my father's house. I said, "Pop, quick, turn the radio on. The Japanese something at Pearl Harbor." And he turned the radio on just in time for us to hear, "In a state of war exists between the Empire of Japan and the United States of America, and we will win the ultimate victory, so help us God." My father turned away from the radio, and my father was a tough man. For the first time that we saw tears in his eyes. He lined up his 4 sons. Al was 12, Rocky was 14, I was 16, Joey was 21. And he said, "Boys, listen to me," like this. "Boys, listen to me. They won't take me because I'm too old. But I expect my sons to," we said, "Pop, but they won't take us till we're 18. He said, "I know." He said, "But I want you to know how I feel about it." He said, "This country must not fail. You understand, boys? This country must not fail. Nowhere in the entire world can a man come here with nothing and look at us today." For me, that became the defining words of my life. Those words went right in here. And I realized, the immigrants were the most patriotic people we had in the country. That they knew what it was like in their country, and they saw what they could do here and so on. If the country's threatened, I expect my sons to go do a job. And we did, by the way. All 4 boys, my older brother Joey and I, World War II, Rocky, Korea, and Al in Vietnam, and we ran out of brothers by Afghanistan. The next morning, a couple of us from the neighborhood let a little hair grow on it. We put on our father's fedoras, the fedoras. We went down to the recruiting sergeant and said, "We want to join the army, we're 18. So I said, go home, get out of here when you're really 18, come back. So we tucked our tail between our legs and then home, and we had to go back to school for 2 years before we could get it. We were anxious. Our fathers had convinced us that, man, this country is not only worth fighting for, it's the hope of the world. And so we were just chafing in school. Finally, when you turned 18, the law at that time was within 2 weeks of your 18th birthday, you got a letter from the President of the United States. So, greetings from the President of the United States. Please report to your nearest draft board. And so you report to the draft board, and the draft board registers you, and you say, I'd like to volunteer. No volunteers. When we're ready for you, we'll send for you. So, I was 18 in March. I did not go in until, October. So now here we are, most of us, innocent kids that have never been more than 10 miles from home. We get sent to Fort Benning, Georgia. They're 1,000 miles away from New York. And we're scared to death. We get off the bus. A big sergeant comes out. And he says, my name is Mastorelli. You got it? We said, yes, sir. He said, don't give me that, sir. And he said, you saved that for the officers. My name is Sergeant Mastorelli. You got it? Yes, Sergeant. Now, I got 19 weeks to turn you little students into soldiers. And by God, Mastorelli's going to do it. You got it? We scared. Yeah, Sergeant. He said, now get into that barracks and come out looking like soldiers. And I assure you, in that 19 weeks, he did turn us into something else, from innocent kids to learning 50 different ways on how to kill somebody. But the point was, we lapped it up. We loved the training. We wanted to get into the fight, and we wanted to be well-trained to do the fight. And so we just exerted ourselves, and at the end of the 19 weeks, we said, nah, we're going to get into the fight, right? No, you have to come back for 4 more weeks of advanced infantry training. Oh, okay. So you go back for advanced infantry training, you're doing more of this. Now, right? You get into the fight. No, you got to come back for 2 more weeks of heavy weapons training. Heavy weapons, 60 millimeter mortars and machine guns. Now, right? No, you got to be sent to a line outfit, an infantry division. When the hell are we going to get into this fight? They sent me and about to the 87th Infantry Division in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. It was the Acorn Division. Acorn Division. Now, okay, we're going to get into the fight. Maneuvers in Tennessee, jungle training in Florida. When the hell are we going to get into this fight?
In this week's episode, we're hearing directly from a legend of the Battle of the Bulge, and his story is made possible by Call of War. Call of War is a free online PvP strategy game where you become the leader of one of the combatant nations of World War II. Test your strategic skills against up to 100 other players in real-time games. Build your army, leveraging tanks, planes, and secret weapons. Forge alliances, or declare war. In Call of War, you are in command. We've met the legends who fought World War II. Call of War places you in their leaders' shoes, testing your own strategic acumen. Play with the same account, anywhere, anytime, on both PC and mobile. And click on the link in the description for an exclusive gift of 13,000 gold and 1 month of premium subscription for free. Offer available for only 30 days, so don't lose time. Click on the link in the description, choose your country, and fight your way to victory. And thank you to Call of War for allowing us to spotlight this week's hero of World War II.
One morning they took us out to a big field, and the officer came out and said, all right, everybody sit down. There's going to be a demonstration today. And we said, what kind of demonstration? Shut up and sit down. We sit down. 3 C-47s come out of the sky, circle the field. And we're looking up with our mouths open because the door's open and guys are throwing themselves out the door. And the little white thing opens and takes them down to the ground. You know, paratroopers were brand new in World War II. And we see these guys that roll up the parachutes and come running across the field and line up in front of us. You know, big, beautiful guys with shiny silver wings and shiny jump boots. You know, paratroopers were the only ones allowed to blouse their pants and their boots and stuff. And the officer comes by and says, listen, this is the United States Parachute Corps. We're looking for feel-good men. You have to have had your 19 weeks, your 4 weeks, your 2 weeks, and we're going, throw yourself out of an airplane? He said, and there's $50 extra a month jump pay. They took 7 of us back to Fort Benning, only this time to the parachute school, and the finest training in the world. We had the best damn officers and sergeants. I'm telling you, when the confidence they built in us, you know, in the infantry you walk 30 miles, in the paratroopers you walk 50 miles, and you double time every place, and so on and so on. They built us into you know, I hate to use the cliche, you know, fighting machine, but they really did. We had such confidence in ourselves, we were ready to take on the whole damn German army by ourselves when we got overseas. While we were at Benning, every once in a while the Army gave us what they called spaghetti for lunch. You know, no self-respecting Italian American would call that spaghetti, but and I used to bitch, you know, and tell the guys, if we're ever anywhere near New York, I'll take it to my mother's house and let you taste real spaghetti. So where do we get sent before going to New York? Camp Upton again, 45 minutes from my mother's house. So when we got the guy, all right, Speranza, what about all that crap you're going to give us, let us taste real spaghetti? I said, okay, let me call my mother. So I called my mother. I said, Mom, I got a day pass. I'm going to be able to come home. And say, oh, Vinny, come on. I'll cook you a nice meal. So I said, Mom, you know, when I was with the boys, I used to tell them if they're anywhere near, you know, what the Army gave us was terrible, that they'd taste real spaghetti at your house. She said, yeah, sure. Bring them. How many? I said, 18. She said, 18? You know, one stick, my stick from the plane. And she said, how much time? I said, well, we won't be there for 3 or 4 hours. Oh, she said, don't worry. My mother was a tough Sicilian woman. You didn't scare her with anything. When we got to the house, the whole neighborhood is going crazy looking here. 3 cars pull up and 18 guys, all crowding into my mother's little house. And my sisters are going crazy. Oh boy, bring all these nice guys and so on. She had it all set up, and she pulled me aside before she started. Said, "Listen, when we have spaghetti, we always have a glass of wine. But you kids are all 18, 19. You're underage. You can't." I said, "No, hey, we're going to fight for the country. Yeah, you put the wine out too." So consequently, there was a pitcher of wine at each table. Consequently, there was a bunch of guys feeling pretty good by the end of the meal. And we decided to put on a demonstration jump out my mother's living room window.
Oh, my God.
The whole neighborhood went crazy. Seeing the guy, we jump out the window, Geronimo, run back and go back in the house and so on. So we had some fun things to talk about when we went overseas. And so we're on the Queen Mary. We get to England, and the Queen could not dock any place in England except Southampton, but the Germans were in control of the channel then, so they pulled up outside of Scotland, and on smaller boats took us ashore to England, a camp called Hungerford, and from there flew us to France. And I was assigned to the D Company, H Company, the 501, and you need a little background here of what had just been happened. The 101st Airborne Division had taken a beating in Holland. In Normandy, they made a name for themselves, did a fantastic job, and so on and so on. Nobody admits the Holland campaign was a complete failure. It had lost 3,000 men, the 101st by itself. and had to leave a lot of its equipment and food and sauces and weapons. They brought them back to Camp Mormelon in northern France there. This is now November. And they were supposed to get 90 days of rest, rehabilitation, replacements, winter clothes, food, ammunition to replenish. 3 weeks after they were in there, this was December the 16th, a complete surprise. Ordinarily wars wind down in the wintertime, and it was cold as hell out there. And neither British intelligence nor American intelligence knew that Hitler had saved up 25 divisions. He even pulled some off the Eastern Front. And with 1,000 of their newest tanks, their Mark IVs and Tiger Royals, 9 of those 25 divisions were Panzers with the tanks and so on. And his last desperate gamble to change the war, they were going to go from Germany through Belgium, the Ardennes, to Antwerp. Antwerp was our port of entry. They were going to capture all the supplies that were meant for us and for themselves and so on. And that move would have separated the British and Canadian armies in the north from the American armies in the south. Changed the war. Their problem was, to get from Germany to Antwerp, they had to funnel through the Ardennes, and there was a little town here called Bastogne. Small village, 4,000 or 5,000 people, but it was a transportation hub. It had all kinds of roads going through it and the railroads. And when the Germans attacked, the 4 American divisions that were holding the American line and destroyed them, Eisenhower said to the 101st, hey, come as you are, get up there and hold it. Now, of course, we enlisted men. We knew nothing. I was PFC. All we knew was that the barrack light come on December 17. All right, drop your, grab your socks. We're moving up. I said, you're crazy. The ground's frozen. We'll all break our legs. I said, you're not jumping. You're going up in trucks. All my airborne training, all the flights, and I'm going to make my first combat jump off the back of a truck. At any rate, as soon as he announced that, from all over the barracks you heard, Sarge, I don't have a rifle. I don't have a... In other words, they had not redistributed the weapons yet. I was a machine gunner without a machine gun. I had a trench knife in my boot. And later on, we found out what the figures were. 10% of us that went to Bastogne were unarmed. And the food ration was like half, the ammunition ration. Our division commander was in the States making speeches. The deputy commander was in England making speeches. The only general officer on the base was McAuliffe, who was the artillery commander. And so he became the division commander for this fight. And the all-day and all-night truck ride was a nightmare, no stops, and nature's calls were a disaster. It would pour all over the guys are off the side, the wind blows it on them and so on. We were madder at each other than we were at the Germans by the time we got to Bastogne. And well, the lieutenant said, all right, 5 yards apart, and watch out for snipers. I said, Lieutenant, what the hell am I supposed to fight? I got a trench knife. He said, we'll get you something, don't worry about it. Maybe from one of the disabled tanks or something, we'll get a machine gun. And a lot of others. The 4 divisions that had been destroyed, the stragglers were ordered to the rear. They had to go through Bastogne. So these guys were going back, and we just said, hey, buddy, listen, you're going back. We took the rifle right off his shoulder. By the way, they were in a daze. They had been slaughtered, and they were coming back. Hey, don't go up there. You're going to get killed. There's 1 million of them. But we went into their pockets, took grenades and so on, so that those of us that were unarmed were on before the first fight, even though we got the Bastogne on. And I found a guy with a nice light 30. Oh, it looks so heavy, but let me help you carry it, pal. And I took the gun and 2 belts of ammunition. So at least for the first fight, I had a gun and 2 belts of ammunition. I also took an M1 because I knew damn well the first 5 minutes of any fight, 2 belts of ammunition. And the officers took us out. The 501 was right outside of this little place called Mont, just a few thousand yards out from Bastogne, and dig a hole. You know, we had no food or water since we got off the truck, so we were dying already, but and the ground is frozen. So you whack at it with it, you whack at it, you whack it, you whack it. And finally, when you get through the frozen part, the tree roots, the Ardennes, it was misery. It took over 4 hours to dig a hole, and we were already exhausted. We get in the hole. All right, we're moving out. Oh, no, we got to go digging over there. We dig in over there. It's like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. You're exhausted completely. You just, yeah, we're moving out. We got to dig. Oh, get out of here. The last place, we just scraped the snow on the side, lay on the ground, you know, we were spent. You know, even if you're young and strong, so there's only so much you can do. That morning, it's December 18th now. When daylight came, the fog was all the way down to the ground. You couldn't see, 50 feet. Everything is just white. And not a sound. Absolutely quiet. And the fog starts to lift like a blanket all at once. It starts to lift. And you see underneath. And where I was dug in, I said, it was an open field. They were going to attack across an open field. But they didn't know it was the 101st Airborne Division in there. Their intelligence told us that we were 130 miles south there, Camp Montmelon. But at any rate, it's quiet. And as soon as the fog gets high enough for you to be able to see all the way through down the field, the whole world exploded. Everything, you were really in the fires of hell. They had 220. They had the one tank. They had 88s. They had the new Katusha rockets, 16 tubes. And the sergeants are, keep your heads down, as though we needed a little. There was nothing you could do except pick your nose down there, curse yourself for not digging the foxhole deeper. And the artillery. Later on, they told us there was one shell was landing every 8 seconds. The big stuff. This is your my first combat anyway. And you can say, well, now you're going to see what you're made of. Now you're going to see what you're made of. And the artillery on and on and on. The ground is shaking like it's an earthquake. And then all of a sudden, 4 tanks pop out of the woods, 2 on each side. The classic German blitzkrieg. The tank's going to come up, destroy the front lines. Their infantry is behind them, and their artillery now is flying overhead to the rest of our lines. In frustration, damn well your gun's not going to do any good against a Mark IV tank, but you fire at them anyway, and you throw a hand grenade. But the tanks go by, and the officers are yelling, let them go by, let the tanks go by, let the tanks go by. Keep your head down till the tanks go by. When the tanks got past us, and therefore their artillery now is back there, the German infantry starts across the field. And what a surprise they got. They expected, like the usual, the 88s and the tanks took care of the front line. They would find point blank into the foxhole. When they hit, the guy disappears, his rifle goes floating around in the air and so on. But You dig your foxhole right, it's very hard for them to get it. When they came up expecting to romp through behind their tanks, they got a big surprise. The lieutenant kept saying, you know, the ground sloped down a little bit, and then 400 yards sloped up, and we're going to catch them. Set the sights for 400 yards. When they hit that 400-yard mark, man, we opened up. It was a slaughter that they did not expect. In fact, they were actually romping like they were, you know, through the snow. But when we stopped them, they finally turn around and go back. Now the tanks, when they know their infantry's not behind them, they got to go back. On their way back, McAuliffe's artillery opened up. The 4 tanks in front of me, every one of them got hit. Only one of them still crawled away from there. And what it meant was that their first attack, complete failure. And you know, we were a little jubilant. You can't get jubilant when you look around, you see your guys are laying all over the damn ground. How the hell many they killed that first day? And you look at yourself, how come I got away with it? Geez, everybody else is getting shot. And the feeling that you get is, yeah, but I proved myself. You know, when you go to an experienced outfit, you're nothing. Until you prove yourself in combat, nobody talks to you, nobody does that. We expected it, they told us about that. Once you prove yourself in combat, and I earned the nickname of Curse and Traverse Speranza. They said all you did was swear, curse and curse and curse. But a nice 3-second burst with the Traverse, you slaughtered them. That's okay. We never heard such swearing in our whole life. We think you invented some new ones. At any rate, the next day they decided to just, the frontal attack is not going to work. They surrounded us. They captured the field hospital. I have to tell you the beer story. In fact, today, I'm more famous for what I did with a helmet full of beer than what I did with my machine gun the whole war. And I've got 15 million different medals, to Bronze Star, to Purple Heart, to that. What is any other? Vince, tell us the beer story. So here's what happened. They surrounded us. They captured the field hospital. All the beds, blankets, equipment, medical supplies, and so on, the Germans had. And they shot up the American personnel. They saved the doctor, 5 of our doctors to serve in their army. 1 doctor and 1 medical nurse escaped into the town. So for our medical team, for the 8 days of that battle, was 1 doctor, 1 nurse, and only his personal instruments. He had to operate with candles from the church and no morphine. It was a pretty bad mess, and a lot of guys that could have been saved had we had a decent hospital didn't make it. Well, my friend had gotten hit in both legs, and they took him back. The only 2 buildings in the whole town that still had walls were the church and the seminary across the street from the church. They had stone, you know, from the old thing. The rest of the town was flat. And so the only thing we could do with the wounded was throw them on the floor. Excuse me, on the floor of the church. You know, the movies show you nice cots, and there's the floor of the church, and wrapped in, we went through the houses to pull curtains, drapes, whatever we could find, because the Germans had captured all the blankets to wrap the wounded guys in. And those of us that had 2 blankets donated one to the wounded. We were all freezing anyway. It didn't make any difference what the hell you had. And when I heard that my friend had gotten, my sergeant sent me back to look for some batteries for the radios, you know, the old walkie-talkies. And while I was back there, I went to look for my friend. So I see him in the church, in front of the church, and it was a pitiful sight. He had a curtain wrapped around his neck, and his name was Joe. I said, Joe, how you doing? He said, nothing, a couple of shrapnel in the leg, I'll be out of here tomorrow. He said, really? He said, yeah, don't worry about it. He said, I'll be back tomorrow, the next day. I said, well, that's great, Joe. We need you, you know. Come on, Joe. I got to go back. Anything I can do for you before I leave? He says, yeah, go find me something to drink. I said, Joe, where the hell am I going to find you something to drink? We're surrounded and cut off. There are no supplies coming in here. He says, go look in the taverns. The taverns are all bombed flat. I said, go look anyway. You might get lucky. Hey, when your foxhole buddy wants a drink, who's more important than my foxhole buddy? Now the picture. I'm slopping down the road looking for a tavern. Artillery's dropping in all around the church and so on. And the first tavern I went into, all broken glass. So. The second one I went into still had a bar, and when I pulled the beer handle, beer came out. And I said, oh. And I looked around for a bottle, a glass, something to put the beer in. There was nothing. Took off my helmet, the same helmet you use in the foxhole. I swished a little snow in it, and I filled it up with beer. Back to Joe. I said, hey, Joe, I got some beer. He said, holy shit. He sits up, and I'm, hey, give me some of that. Hey, give me some of that. I was like an old mother cow that giving all these guys a mouthful of beer, and I ran out. Joe says, go get some more. No, Jesus Christ, Joe, go get some more. Okay. I go down again, I fill up the helmet, but this time when I stepped out the doorway, a shell landed and it knocked me down, spilled most of the beer and so on and so on. But I wasn't hurt, so I got up, went back to the church, and this time standing in the doorway like this is the regimental surgeon, Captain Walkman. He says, what the hell do you think you're doing, soldier? Bringing aid and comfort to the wounded? He said, you stupid jackass, don't you know I got chest cases and stomach cases in there? You give him beer, you'll kill him. Get out of there before I have you shot. Yes, sir. And put that helmet on. The weather was below zero. It never went above 0 degrees. It's bad enough when you're cold, but when you're wet and cold, I could write another book on the next 4 hours how my guys kept me from freezing by taking my clothes off and beating me and all that. But at any rate, I ran back to the foxhole before he changed his mind. And as far as I was concerned, that was an incident during the war. I forgot about it. 65 years later, when I went back to Europe for the first time, after the war, I didn't want to go back anymore. I didn't want to see any more of that stuff. And I finally got talked into going back. My daughter came with me. I was 85 years old, and my wife had just been taken away to a nursing home and with Alzheimer's. And She sort of pinched my conscience a little bit. She said, if nothing else, Pop, we should go back one time to the cemeteries where your guys are buried, pay our respects. I said, yeah, okay. But when we go back, a series of accidental meetings, accidental decisions, I can't believe how fate, I guess, sets things up to where we were going to stay 3 days and go home, and that was the end of it. We didn't know anybody or anything. I was going to rent a taxi, go out of town, see if I recognized it. As fate would have it, we went into a shop that had a bunch of stuff, and we found out later, a Dutch paratrooper officer. I said, can I help you, sir? We said, no. I said, no, I was here during the war. He said, you were here during the war? I said, yeah. He said, with the 101st Airborne Division? I said, yeah. It came around. I thought he was going to attack me. I went to the defense mode. He picked me up off the floor. Sir, where have you been? There are so few of you left. We want to honor you. We want to... Who were you with? H Company, 501. He said, I can show you. We studied the war. We knew where everybody was, the positions, and so we teach it to our kids. He said, I can take you and show you where H Company was dug in on both sides of the road. You and your daughter get in the car. You get in the car, and a friend of his, Johnny Boner, gets in the car. And they take me out. Now, I recognize nothing, don't know what was all snow, there was that, but he says, now, H Company was dug in. Here. You could see, they were filled in, but you could see they were foxholes. And then he says, and he looks me in the eye like this, and that was your foxhole. I said, get out of here. I can understand you knowing where H Company was, how the hell you know that was my foxhole? He said, because your company commander, Captain Stanley, when he turned in his after-action reports, he had a rough diagram on a piece of cardboard from the K ration where he had put the automatic weapons. You were the only machine gun in the 3rd platoon, right? Yes, sir. Look, MGU. Now, you have to picture the situation. You're 85 years old, and somebody is saying to you, where you're standing right now, 72 years ago, you were a 19-year-old kid with a machine gun waiting for the first German attack. And all the stuff that I had tried to hide came back, hit me in the face. I fell apart, I was 85 years, you don't have control anymore. And my daughter said, Marco, look, we got to go back. We'll come back tomorrow. My father's seen enough today. And on the way back, I asked him if I could take them to lunch. And at lunch, I ordered 3 bottles of wine. I said, I got to change the mood here. I don't like the way we're feeling. Well, you put 3 bottles of wine and 3 old soldiers together, and you know what's going to happen. And we started, this was the fancy dining room of the hotel. We embarrassed the hell out of my daughter. They're loud, talking loud. And they all start telling stories. And when when my turn, I told them this beer story. And they're going like this, You were the GI who brought the beer? I said, yeah. You were the wounded guys in the church, you gave them the beer? I said, yeah. He said, man, don't you know you're famous in Europe? I said, what the hell are you talking about? They said, waiter, come here. Bring us 4 bottles of airborne beer. And the waiter comes back with 4 bottles of beer and 4 little ceramic bowls in the shape of a GI helmet that they serve it in, it says Airborne. And the label on the bottle of beer shows an American paratrooper with a helmet full of beer going like this. They said, nobody thought that was a true story. Everybody thought that was a baloney story from World War II. We can't believe it. I said, yeah, well, maybe I should get a cut on the beer, right? They said, no, well, we'll give you 6 bottles of beer to take home. When I got home, I get a phone call from a reporter of the Illinois Daily Mail. We heard a story, can we come interview you? I said, yes. So they came with a photographer, and after the reporter got the story, the photographer wanted me to pose behind the 6 bottles of beer with the label showing, in my kitchen. He took a picture. The next day they put it on the front page of the newspaper. Somebody took it from the newspaper, put it on the internet. I repeat, I am more famous for what I did with a helmet full of beer than what I did with the beer story, my machine gun, the whole war. I got 2 Bronze Stars, 2 Purple Hearts, the French Legion of Honor, a million medals. Vince, tell us the beer story.